After a weekend of no kings protests across the country and a government shutdown reaching day 20, could upcoming key elections reflect voters' frustrations? Lots to talk about here with Fox News chief political anchor and executive editor of Special Report, Bret Baier. Bret Baier is here, and we have a special segment 2 coming up because he has a new book out. It is called To Rescue the American Spirit, Teddy Roosevelt and the Birth of a Superpower. It is available starting Tuesday, October 21st, everywhere books are sold. And I will tell you, I haven't been able to read it yet. I will say it is one of the most beautiful book covers I've seen in a long time.
Well, thank you very much.
Do you have a lot of input on those?
Yes. And I think the cover makes a difference.
Oh,
when it's something feels big.
Yes, but also the paper quality is nice. And also, I always describe it this way. Does it make you want to pick it up?
Yeah.
At the store? And this absolutely does. So we're going to get to that in a minute, but let's talk a little bit of politics.
Yeah.
Because on Perino on Politics, I just call it my smart friends and say, what is going on? Can we start with foreign policy with, we're just a week from when President Trump was in Israel to help do the peace deal. Then he went to Egypt and he got everything done. And everybody knew that it was going to be a little tenuous. And how do you see it right now? President Trump says it's holding, the Israeli says it's not, and Hamas is trying to survive.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of questions about how it's going to look. The security guarantees on the ground, what the Arab force is going to be, like how it will be put together. But there's optimism, there's buy-in, I talked about it today, there's like this frustration, like we're so tired of this, that both sides seem to be at least in the game. The IDF had action, they went back in, and then they pulled out and said, we are back to the ceasefire. So that was a big deal for the Israelis to do that and come out. The hostage videos and all of that was so powerful, but now it's the details. And I think that is yet to be ironed out. I thought Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner did really well on 60 Minutes and explaining kind of the behind the scenes. And, they have an optimism. I talked to Witkoff this weekend. They think it's going to come together, and they should know, but there's a lot of pieces.
Well, I really liked learning more about Jared Kushner, going way back to the first term of the Trump administration, thinking that if you could get the region on the same economic page, then maybe you could forge a peace. Do you think that is on the minds of the leaders that you've spoken to? Because you, not just Netanyahu, but you've talked to the Arab leaders as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think that there is a real hunger to make that happen. And they think that that's a solution that could lift up the region and kind of take it from always being in constant conflict.
One of the things I think that's a concern is that because Hamas is not completely decimated, right now the only people the Palestinians can look to for security and even food is Hamas. Can that change and give them something else to hold on to? Yeah,
I think they have to come up with a legitimate governing authority that, is not Mahmoud Abbas solely. Maybe they have a piece of it, the Palestinian Authority, but it has the Arab and Gulf states buy in and sign off. You remember when Hamas originally took over during the Bush administration? Yeah. Essentially, they were filling the potholes, and they
said we'll pick up the trash.
And pick up the trash.
Even Zoran Mamdani won't say that.
Yeah, but I mean that's what they did to get elected.
Yeah,
and they got
wanted
elected.
Governance. They said that we will be good governance.
And they convinced the people, but it didn't
turn out that way. Can you tell me a little bit more about what happened in the Oval Office between President Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky and the Putin phone call that happened right before that?
So I think this is, the Ukrainians are scratching their head. They thought they were on the right track. They thought that was heading down the right road because...
To get the Tomahawk missiles.
Yeah, and they thought that the frustration was building, and President Trump was talking about that with Vladimir Putin, like he was getting sick of it. Then he has this phone call with Putin, and it changes, and the pressure then is on Zelensky to take a deal, and he's not going to get the Tomahawks, at least not yet. And so I think there is this back and forth, and President Trump is putting pressure on both sides. He hasn't really put all the pressure on Putin as of yet, and it seems like every one of these phone calls ends up with another promise of a meeting, And it seems like the KGB guy is active in how he portrays himself.
Right. And then what about then President Trump looking ahead? He's got a meeting in South Korea with President Xi of China, and the tariff war is heating up that's what happens in a tariff war. I'll charge you this, well, I'll charge you that. And then it keeps ramping up.
He thinks this force of personality, President Trump does, can move the needle. I think that's true in some instances. He does have this ability to talk to world leaders and connect with them. President Xi and President Putin are two different animals, and they operate differently. So we'll see what comes out of that meeting. I think that, when he talks tough, they listen because it affects their countries, but they also know how to try to work Trump on the inside.
And they're so patient, right? To them, 3 more years of Trump is
nothing.
Right. It's quick in their minds. They take this longer view of things.
And they want to wait it out, maybe.
Maybe.
But they also have to make a deal for their countries now.
Yep.
And so that's what the administration is hoping, is that she is ready.
Last foreign policy question. Do you think Congress will try to assert some influence over what's happening in the Caribbean and Venezuela when it comes to the drug war?
Maybe. I think there is a concern about what's going on, and that it's kind of a little haphazard and not completely
kosher,
above board.
Well, it could be a little bit more transparent.
Yeah.
I would think. And that's necessary. Do you think that the Pentagon press corps, for now out of the building, I think the policy that the Pentagon has put forward is wrong. But I also think that reporters are still going to be able to cover the story.
Oh, sure. We're going to cover it, and every other network and every other newspaper is going to cover it. It's weird that we're not in the building. I think they need to fix that. I mean, I used to be in the building.
When I was press secretary, before I was press secretary, I worked at the Justice Department, and I was one of many spokespersons at the time. And the Justice Department, I think even to this day, still has reporters in the building. Yeah. But it's not like they were upstairs in the Attorney General's office walking around.
Not how the Pentagon
it was helpful for the press people. It was helpful to be able to pop across and say, AP, can I see you real quick? Or they could come in and ask us questions. And usually, basically, I learned 101 ways to say no comment at the Justice Department, which was very useful. But I learned a lot there, which was great. Every cabinet agency, as I recall, and I've been told, and Marlon Fitzwater talks about this, he was press secretary to Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush. Every agency had reporters in the building. What happened over time was that they didn't get kicked out of the building, but as institutions cut back, they decided, well, maybe we don't need to have reporters in the EPA building or at DOE or wherever it might be at the interior of the building. And so they were covering it from afar. And I wonder if that has hurt a little bit in terms of coverage, because so much coverage of the federal government is about the White House and not so much about the rest of the government. There's a lot of things happening all around.
Yeah, I like to say it's like an iceberg. You focus on the controversy and the thing of the day, but there's a big iceberg beneath the water that's happening in the administration. That a lot of stuff's going on. The Pentagon, listen, there was portrayed that reporters could go anywhere and they were going into classified areas. That never happened.
No.
I was there for 6.5 years. It never happened. And so there were places we couldn't go. Could you talk to people in the hallway? Yes. Did you wear a badge? Yes. The problem with the policy was that they were asking us to sign off on if unclassified information that hadn't been released, that you could get in trouble for covering that. And that starts to be like
that's not
being spoon-fed or something.
The First Amendment is first for a reason. And so there's that. Last question on this segment before we get to your book. The shutdown is in day 20. To me, nobody cares. Nobody notices.
It's amazing, isn't
it? Because they've cushioned it for everybody, right? Like Social Security is protected, defense is protected, the air traffic controllers are still coming to work. Like nobody is really feeling the pain yet. And yet again, we go back to this fight about health care in America.
It's pretty amazing, and I don't think that Democrats have played the political hand that well on this one. I think there was probably an impetus to shore up the left and say we're going to fight against Trump. But in reality, the Republicans have an easier pitch. Let's just pass it, keep the government going, and then we'll argue about this, the subsidies. And, people don't really understand the subsidies. No. They were put in there because the Obamacare marketplace wasn't working. It wasn't driving prices down. So they put in these artificial subsidies that expire.
But I would say that there is no Republican who is out there explaining that well. When I can explain it better than they can, that's a problem.
That's
and
an issue.
And I find that they sort of talk about it around the edges, hoping that they won't actually have to talk about it. Actually, Marjorie Taylor Greene, she is talking about it, but from the standpoint of that we should do these subsidies because people that are our constituents and our voters, they need them. I would say that there's actually a more free market way to go. But I also read this weekend that at the end of the year, apparently the Republicans are going to come forward with yet another big plan on health care. And I'm like, well, we've seen this before.
Many times.
I don't think it'll go anywhere.
Yeah.
I would like it to. I shouldn't be. I sound very negative. I'm like, wow. I am joyful and happy and optimistic about this great book, To Rescue the American Spirit, about Teddy Roosevelt. For those who didn't see America's Newsroom, I did want to try to bridge these two segments quickly with the story about the Nobel Prize. Because in the Roosevelt room of the White House, there's a little Nobel Prize. I think it's still there, hanging. And I would always be like, who got that? You'd think it was maybe Jimmy Carter because he thought he was such a peacemaker. No, it was Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah. So he decides that America needs to be on the forefront of solving global issues. And Russia and Japan are fighting over territory. And it's really devolving and could go into a big war. And he gets Russia and Japan to sign on to come to the U.S., Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and sets up this negotiation that eventually gets to a deal. And he's the guy that makes it all come together.
Can I ask you something about the communications of the time? How did they get there? I mean, the travel must have been crazy.
Crazy. They took ships over, and it was all telegram.
Oh, telegram. Okay.
And they finally get the delegations there. But the logistics of being able to do that is like a major lift compared to what we have now.
I know. It's so interesting for all of that. Why did the American spirit need rescuing?
There was this sense that it was becoming insular and we were not getting the credit around the world. One of the things he does is the U.S. Navy, significant, all painted gray ships, the battleships. He paints them gleaming white and decides as a show of force he's going to send this armada around the world. And the world says, whoa, this is a big deal. And it essentially sails around the world. And it's part of projecting America as a global force. And he does that. I think he was a bigger-than-life character, somebody that really sucked a lot of oxygen. He talked to every reporter. And he believed that he could move the needle, and he did as president. He also did as a third-party candidate, which cost his party the presidency, and Woodrow Wilson becomes president. And, it's one of the ironic things.
He goes... He loves New York City.
Loves it.
And he wanted to make sure New York City was safe and protected. And I feel like we're in this moment again. It's so interesting about this book because we're talking about the Nobel Prize. We're talking about rescuing the American spirit and being insular. Or are we? Or are we projecting strength around the world? But the New York part is kind of interesting, especially right now. Yeah,
so he grows up here, but he eventually comes back here. He runs for a state legislator. He is kind of a reformist. He stirs the pot. He goes out west, then comes back to become New York City Police Commissioner. He really changes the dynamic in a corrupt city police department, and goes on to become New York governor, in which he is still like a troublemaker as far as really pushing the envelope against the traditional forces, to the point where the Republican Party says, we need to figure out what to do with this guy. Make him vice president, that'll erase his power. And that's what he becomes, vice president. He's there for 6 months, and William McKinley gets assassinated, and he becomes the youngest president in the history of the country at 42.
That's one of Karl Rove's books about McKinley that helps me understand this a little bit. For those who might know a little bit about Teddy Roosevelt, maybe they've read a previous book about Teddy Roosevelt. What is different about yours?
I think it's the same soda straw look at a moment, but then you bounce back and look at his life. I think it is a lot of nuggets of history that are very readable, like turn the page kind of readable. This is the sixth book about a president that we've done, and I think, it becomes this formula that I think works, becomes readable. It jumps off the page, like you're in the room with some of these moments, and it's real history.
What other parallels, besides the Nobel Prize and things, that could you point to with today's presidency and that one?
The larger-than-life figure, the bombast and kind of like owning the moment. He also is someone who is not typical, like you don't know how he's going to come down on certain issues. Like he was Republican, but also pushed back and sometimes was very progressive when it came to fighting for the poor, making sure the little guy and labor was represented, pushing back against antitrust. He has a battle with J.P. Morgan, and J.P. Morgan says, why didn't you just have your guy talk to my guy and we'd figure it out behind the scenes? And Roosevelt says, that's exactly what I don't want to do. I don't want to be that elitist guy. I want to be the fighter. And so there's similarities.
I love that. And The Gilded Age is out as well, so you could see that. One of the things that you do, maybe you're not able to announce this, will there be a young adult version of this as well?
Yes, and we've done that before, and there will be again.
My little cousin in Wyoming, big reader, loves them.
Yeah.
Loves them and can't put them down, and so I highly recommend it if you can do that, especially because some of the stuff that Roosevelt did out west was pretty pioneering,
right,
in a way, and going to observe, and of course he's going through grief at the same time.
Yeah, he lost his wife and his mother the same day, Valentine's Day.
And so he goes out west to try to heal. And then and he does.
He does.
And he returns triumphant.
And the Presidential Library is going to be in North Dakota. And former North Dakota governor, now Interior Secretary, Doug Burgum, I interviewed him for the hour special that we do, which came out this week too. And, that library is going to be really cool. And North Dakota has taken on Teddy Roosevelt as their proud son.
I love that. That's the only state I've never been to.
Really?
And same with Hemmer.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're trying to see if maybe for America 250, they'll send us.
Well, that's when the library opens, July 3rd.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
If anyone's listening, I hope you are listening. Well, congratulations on the book. This is just where I ask smart people, what am I missing? What are you paying attention to? Anything you're picking up out there?
I think that the Middle East thing has opened up a different look at President Trump. And I think that there are other deals that may come out of the Middle East original solving of that problem. In
that region or elsewhere?
Both.
Okay.
I think the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia is coming in mid-November. For a visit. It's not technically a state visit because his father is still alive, the king, but expect that to be a place where big deals get done, maybe bigger. And then I do think that the Asia stuff is going to come around. If you start piecing together a couple of these big deals, it will change the dynamic about what his presidency looks like.
Well, there's lots happening, and thank you for being on Perino on Politics. We appreciate it. And congrats. It's a beautiful book.
Thank you very much.